Hey everyone, we're back again with another Q&A with Murray. And Murray, before I ask you what I think are some really hard questions that I was wrestling with during the sermon, I would love for you to give a recap for our audience.
Revelation chapter 12, the first 11 verses, is one of the most fascinating in all of Scripture because it tells the story of human history. It tells the story of God's great story from the garden through the grave of Christ's resurrection to glory in just 11 verses. From a cosmic perspective, in other words, we get through John's witness of the vision that happens in the heavenly realm, we get a picture of what's really going on behind the scenes, so to speak, that plays out here on earth.
So the first question I was wrestling with was someone who likes to maybe have control, and when we have chaos, things that are out of our control that might make us feel like, is God punishing me? Why is this happening to me? Help me understand how life amidst of chaos is not chaotic to God, right? But it's sanctifying to us, it's loving to us, that God hasn't forgotten us.
One of the ways that we need to think about things is if you and I were to watch a baseball game through one chain link in the outfield fence, we might be able to see aspects of that ball game, but we don't get the whole picture of what's going on. God not only has the whole picture, but orchestrates the whole picture. And so because of that, everything that happens to us, since the Bible tells us God is a God of order and not a God of chaos, everything that happens to us that we can view, even at Christmas time is the perfect time to talk about it, we can view like a present that says, "Dear John, this is exactly what you need right now. I love you. God." Now, you may not like what's inside, but God, having a viewpoint of the whole of life, knows that whatever that is inside that box is not only furthering his kingdom purposes, but also furthering his kingdom in your heart.
Yeah, that's a great example with the baseball.
Yeah.
Watching through that little chain link fence. My other question was that I wrestled with was, in God keeping us safe, how do you respond to families who've maybe suffered loss, who don't feel like they were kept safe? And how do we help define God's view of true safety in an eternal perspective?
Well, we think about Old Testament examples. Think about Daniel in the lion's den, or think about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. There are two ways for God to deliver them. On the one hand, he can deliver them as he did. He shut the lion's mouth. He was with them in the fiery furnace and protected them from death in both cases. The other way that God can keep us safe is to bring us safely home with him. Yeah. And ultimately, that's the reality for every believer. One day we will be ultimately safe. And so when we talk about safety, and maybe I should have said this yesterday in the sermon, or Sunday in the sermon, rather, isn't so much about God's always going to protect us and things are going to work out the way that we hope they will on this earth.
Yeah.
But we have the promise that because God wins, we are safe. And that may not mean that cancer goes away, or that relationships are ultimately healed, or in the example that I gave, that we were safe in the midst of the tornado. But it could mean more that God chooses to take his servants home to be with him so that they are forever safe.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Those were really tough questions, and it's always helpful to know that our trust in the nature and character of God is ultimately important in how we deal with situations here on earth. So
Good,
we
amen.
thank you for your faithful word. Thank you for listening. And if you, again, have any questions, we would love to answer those on this podcast. Thank you.